I need to be somebody who has the capacity to discern and to be able to rely on my own deeper roots. I need to be able to know how to draw from deeper living waters, because that is what will actually help this mother. If I am selling her a ticket to my show, I'm not being of service to her. So if I have to be non judgmental but clear, non agendaed but completely of service, without an agenda of my own, yet I know where my line is, which is not an agenda. If I need to know all of this stuff and reside there, I've been able to do that only because of inner work. Because I need to have a conviction of where my line is and a clarity of where my line is without being in judgment of anybody else's line, without having an agenda to sell, except that my agenda is that I'm a birth worker and my job is to meet the woman where she's at.
Welcome to the Birth Agni podcast, the fire that births us and transforms us. This is a space where women reclaim birth on their own terms, where deep ancient knowing meets primal courage. We talk birth, womanhood, breastfeeding, parenting, and the quiet power of choosing differently. Choosing of our own. Come as you are, leave more rooted. I'm Divya Kapoor, a childbirth educator, lactation counselor, trainee traditional midwife, and doula, disintegrating the politics of birth, one story at a time. Where does safety lie in birth? Where are we heading when women are left with a subtle pressure to choose a side, hospital or no hospital, birth center or home, medicalization or no medicalization? Where does inner work, both for parents and birth workers, look like in all the changing dynamics of the birth world? We sit down with Reba and have a warm conversation about her journey into birth work and peeling off the layers of emotional work often needed by everyone involved in the birth team. The aspects of fear, the need to keep the family at the center, and much more. Reba Daniel is a health journalist, birth doula, and childbirth educator with 17 years of experience behind her, with healing birth trauma experiences as a focus point of her work as well. With a warm cup of tea, let's get straight into the conversation. Hi Reba, welcome to the show. I'm so glad we're finally meeting. And it does seem like things have fallen into place so far. And I was thinking of where to start this conversation. And one of the places was from the very beginning of your work, which is when you started birth work. Why did you start birth work? How did you were a journalist before this and you got into this work. You have your own story of birthing unassisted at home. How did all of this come together?
Hi. I'm actually really happy to be here. Every time I talk to you, like when we talk over the phone, or even though it's very sporadic, it just feels very nice because a lot of things open up, when people who are like-minded kind of connect. Even though we may not agree on everything, it's such a beautiful space of unfolding that happens. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where tonight's conversation also takes us, My birth work started from the birth that I had with my daughter. That's really the action part of it, the work part of it.
Yeah.
And therefore, I would say it started in my pregnancy, I suppose. But there was not, in my pregnancy, the work was very much into myself because it was the year 2007. And this topic and resources and people, even people as resources, were not very widely available at the time. If we think this is very typical now, And if we talk about mainstream now, it was even more because it was just before the advent of like social media becoming big and Facebook was just starting, or I don't like somewhere around that time, right? So, access to information, other ways of thinking, solutions to what birth could be like, or how to even think about things, how to envision a certain sort of action from only a feeling that you're having. There were not many words and terminologies or paths that were even visible to me at the time. So my birth work started after I gave birth to my daughter, and that is I had an unassisted home birth, which happened because of a very peculiar sequence of events in my own life. But looking back, I know that that sequence of events and that decision was absolutely right for me. I was fully prepared for the home birth. I had made myself very aware of it. My husband had his own backup plans, which he thankfully did not reveal to me. Therefore, I was not, I was still on my thing. It's just that I wasn't even looking back, right? Now, this is 17, almost in February, it'll be 18 years ago. But looking back, I have to like say for sure that I wasn't being foolhardy. I had done my research, I had prepared myself. There was a lot of inner shifts that were going on. Even 18 years later, my methodology of what was going on inside me and what I responded to, I have absolutely nothing to upgrade in that part of it. What I do have to upgrade and what I did upgrade was actually technical, a lot more layered information, especially in the department of spirituality and birth and all. I had no idea about those things when I was doing it. Right? So, one part of it which helped me to do, or which was what kept the wheels moving and took me to, again, it wasn't a decision made in advance and I wasn't working towards it. It was a sequence of events that finally ended up taking me to that decision. And in that department, even today, there's not a single thing that I feel was missing, or I didn't shy away from my fears, and there was a deepening of me that actually happened. And there's the reason I say this is because I know that this is a very essential part of birth in any context. But when I'm saying that I had a home birth, I just want to reiterate that there is a certain frequency that a mother brings into her decision and her ownership of her home birth. And I was not doing a home birth to be a good girl or to prove to anybody anything. There was not even a home birth agenda. It was arriving at that decision and then deepening in the decision and literally being led by the hand step by step. And that's a very layered conversation. It will take its own time and it has its own layers. But after I had that experience, people came to know about it. And then there were these women who started reaching out to me. I even had letters come in the post. At that time, we actually used to,
Wow.
still had, it was the last legs of the postal service, I suppose. And then when Facebook started, there were people reaching out to me. There were people figuring out my phone number through somebody, calling and asking. And it wasn't only pregnant women. There was a lot of older people just saying that it makes so much sense. And it was almost like there was a reassurance given to me by strangers who are older than me, men and women. And also at the same time, there were a lot of younger women, younger people in the next few years who found a way to reach out and connect. And then I would end up having maybe Facebook long chats with them or phone conversations. And that is really the birth work and how it started.
Wow. There's so many things to note here. If while you kind of just started on your journey, in all of this, I know you as one of the very few people, I'd say probably the only one that I know who is really in tune with herself and who is somebody who's always listening to the inner world that you're in, and that's how you lead your life. It's there, and it's very much a part of who you are, and it comes out in conversations and comes out in everything. And it's beautiful, it's inspiring, and it's who you are. So when you talk about the pregnancy journey, that's how you were there signals. I mean, you caught on certain things, and then one thing led to another, and then you had the birth.
In my experience, remember this was 17 years ago. I am this person now because that event happened and how I grew and learned from it and the places that it took me to and the relentless seeking that it awoke inside me and then finding the answers to that seeking. The me I am today is because of that. So when I was at that point, I wasn't this me at all.
Yeah, yeah. Somehow it's hard for me to believe it.
I was 31. Now, next year I'll be 50, There's been a lot of time that's elapsed in between. But if I have to look back with absolute honesty, I would say that that was the first experience of my life where I was very loudly led by intuition. When we talk about something like intuition and our feelings, the feeling place of a woman, if we are very honest with ourselves, we know that we've had this even as a teenager. Some of us may even have memories of an event in childhood where this sensation of, no, 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 I know this, right? There's this feeling inside us. And we've been trained to be experts at kicking it in the butt and letting it fall aside, by the wayside.
Right. Yeah.
If I look back on my life, I would say that in my pregnancy was when I began to actually, in the beginning, it was a little bit unnerving. Like, how can I feel so strongly about this? And how can I feel so keenly about this? And then how can I not just adjust? Or even if I am trying to adjust and I'm listening to this advice from this person and it's like, no, 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 something isn't sitting right. How can it be so strong suddenly? The only thing that changed was that I was pregnant. It wasn't even a big, just in months, right? This feeling of how one part of me that was more hidden or in the background, in just a matter of a few months, it's just coming to the forefront. It's just coming to the forefront, right? So, in that way, I would say the beginning of my journey to acknowledging that I have an inner scape and that my inner scape is probably the more relevant part of me as I engage with my outer scape. And my inner scape has a lot more depth and layers and answers and wisdom and solutions and ideas and all of that realization actually began in this experience of pregnancy.
Yeah.
So, in that way, I would say that that was the beginning of how I actually became this me. So yes, and because I had already been doing a meditation journey for many years, and I had started to move in the direction of the inner, but very mildly. I was very dedicated, but if you look at, how much did you do? I hadn't done that much. And yet, I would say that I knew enough to give myself permission to even have my own technique of surrender in the pregnancy, right? Okay, so something will, a thought will come up or a event, or okay, you need to go get a scan. So okay, then I had the awareness to know that okay, I have a discomfort with this, and I had done a little bit of enough inner work to see, okay, I need to figure out what is this discomfort. Let me see. Okay, why are you feeling the discomfort, Reba? Okay, why are you feeling? Okay, because you wanted your pregnancy to be like your grandmother's, and your grandmother didn't have any scans, and therefore, what will it make you if you have a scan? And therefore, what does that make you? Okay, I do want to get information, and so this sorting out of thoughts and stuff. I had done enough inner work to even know that there are two parts of me, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
And slowly during my pregnancy, I had this technique where I would accept that I'm feeling very upset and I don't know the answer. My first rule was go and do all the research that you can. Get on the internet and do all the research that you can. And the next step is meet the care provider and talk to them about all of this research that you have. Come back home without committing to anything, right? And put these two together, and then I used to give myself space. And in a way, for me, for lack of a better word, it was then I gave space for God to talk to me. And I think even now, loosely speaking or broadly speaking, that is my technique. I want all of the information just to inform me about what it is. And then I like listening and I like talking to and I like engaging with people who have expertise over it, because the human input brings me so much more understanding of the angles that I got from the internet or the textbook. Now that I have both of these pillars, I like taking a breath in. Okay, now the deciphering of this in a manner that applies to me, especially for something like pregnancy, birth, deep life situations, I think can only be done in the presence of a higher power or even our higher selves.
Yeah.
Because we are not trained, and at that age especially when you're having your first baby and all, we actually do not have the skills or the capacity. We have not been given those skills to know how to figure it out. And because we don't have our own methodology or our skills to figure it out, that's why we end up being again dependent and codependent, which is inevitable, at that situation. But it's because of the absence of these things. And these things were definitely something, when I look back, these were things that were in play. Even though I didn't have all the answers, I had a method that I decided, okay, that works for me. I was also very, very, very blessed. I had a wonderful OBGYN. And I don't think it's a coincidence that she was married to the person who was my first meditation sir. Even though she wasn't a meditator herself, she knew how I was wired at that time, and she had no judgments about. And it was I'm not talking about the home birth, just about the expert that I used to go to. So every month when I used to go for my checkup and BP and weight and very typical pregnancy checkup, every time I used to share something with her, she never used to downplay it and she never made me feel weird. She never, there was nothing negative from her at all. And I feel like, I find when I look back that was such an important thing for me as a first time mom. I found my formula, if you can say it. And I think finding one's formula is something that can make one feel very secure, even if we don't share it with anybody else. In the
Yeah.
deepest chambers of ourselves, it makes us feel a little more secure. And it was a result of all that then I became this.
Yeah.
During my pregnancy journey, I had a lot of doubts, and I had it was a boom of information, because I had never encountered any of that before I was pregnant. So there was so much information, there was so many things to be understood, and I was just fascinated. And I had always loved biology, so I think that was also part of my fascination. And I had never gone into this subject, and I was curious, I was learning, and I was pregnant at the same time. And my search was giving me more and more answers about, oh, I think I prefer this like this, and I think I want to have this. And then as the journey went, the preferences that were coming up for me, I began to realize that my hospital wouldn't be able to provide that for me. And even when my ask was reasonable, I realized that they were structured in a way that they could not accommodate my ask. And to be honest, I didn't even go for very big conversations, because I had a conversation once about having a lotus birth, which the older I get, the more convinced I am that it's an extremely important and very powerful thing to bring to a baby's first few days. But at that time, I was so clear. I mean, I was so clear that no matter what kind of birth I have, I want my child to have a lotus birth. And I have no reason to say, oh, this is the reason why. It just felt so absolutely right. And that one conversation with the pediatrician, trying to explain to him my own side, informed me that long conversations between two points of contact who do not have a foundational agreement about what we're talking about, that's usually a waste of time and energy. So it wasn't even that I engaged with a lot, or I didn't have this much awareness. I didn't have this much clarity. I just had what was essential for that experience. And I wasn't this Reba at that time. But then at the core, there must have been this me also inside that.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be. And while you were speaking, it made me think that you are somebody who draws from your, I wouldn't say past. We all have a life behind us that always seems like a mystery to us, at least to some of us. And you're always trying to look back and and to our childhood, to our memories, to the faint dreams sometimes from our childhood. And what were they saying to us? Because sometimes they come up randomly, and
Yeah.
you're like, "Oh, that seems like it had a connection." And probably you seem to be a person who has that, like when you say foundation, like that core of trying to, if I say, ruffle the pages of your own life and draw from it every now and then.
So I used to always wonder about that. But then when I stumbled across human design many years ago, and then when I found my design, it's like, oh, no wonder I'm like this. Because we're each wired so uniquely that we have our own ways of figuring out our lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, I am somebody who is designed to experiment and learn and look back and see the past. And it's like a very relentless data gathering kind of thing. And it has its positives and it has its negatives, and it's just what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And while you were talking about the journey of the pregnancy and the two pillars, especially, I remember this conversation I had with Sarah Schmidt, the one who free birthed her 10 children, has written a book on free birthing. And we were talking about fear all through her pregnancies because she birthed all of her children at home. One was with a midwife, the others were completely unassisted on her own. So we were talking about, does it look like that there was no fear in all of this? And she said something which was beautiful. And she said, fear is a part of giving birth, it's tied to it. You cannot have a birth, even if it's unassisted, even if it's like you've had so many children, you've gone through the experience over and over again. It's one different from the other. And you would still have the fear, and you have to know how to work with it. And her method was also knowledge. Whenever something came up, she learned more about it. Then she tied her intuition to it. So she said two to the formula. One is, what do I not know about this? How much more can I know about this? And second is, now, what does my guidance tell me? So fear is something we often talk about in birth, and we talk about working on our fears, we talk about reducing our fear, sometimes even talk about, sometimes birth is portrayed from women and from families and even from some birth workers, like, and across the world I'm talking about, that a birth happened fantastically and it seems like it was fearless, like fear was never a part of it, like it comes off as a very glorious, there's a glorious connotation to it, which is something I want to discuss with you. Yeah.
I just absolutely love this point because it brings up so many questions, right? Who taught us to glorify the absence of fear? What is the virtue in being fearless when genuinely fear is a reality? Which part of me is actually the filter through which fear appears to me, and it's the mind usually, right?
Yeah.
Now, it is also very interesting to me that vigilance and hypervigilance can come up in the body, and in labor it does. This is not automatically entwined with fear, but to a mind that is urbanized and has been chronically out of whack and out of alignment with nature, because labor can take you to very primal places, right? And in our lives, what is the, like, a lot of times we urban people are, our stay in the resort that had the wild waters flowing right next to us, white waters flowing next to us, is the closest we've got to primal, man.
Yeah.
Get it? And we admire it. And then the ones who are the thrill seekers are still doing it from a trauma response a lot of times. But
Yeah.
then, okay, at least they're going closer to it. But fear pops up through so many things, right? Anytime. And we have to acknowledge that we have urbanized minds that are detached um, from primal roots, and we have hyper vigilant minds that where the vigilance is not fed instinctual by an instinctual place of vigilance, but the vigilance is initiated by the trauma that has been induced by the system,
Right.
right? You can be very vigilant in a forest. You'll be very smart to be vigilant in a forest, but not because, oh my god, the forest is unsafe, therefore I have to be hyper, but because of the respect of the balance of things. It's two different states of being, though, right? So when we talk about fear itself, to an urban, in our current socio-cultural political gender whatever patriarchy, we can put all the words there, but we do have to zone in on what is that fear,
Yeah.
because there is a healthy fear. Anytime you are going to the altar of the primal and the divine, if you don't have fear, then you're nuts. Okay? Because the primal and the divine is designed to bring you to your knees. It's
Yeah.
not always designed to kill you, but it is designed to bring you to your knees because there is a deeper something there. So it is, I would say, it's healthy to have a fear of things you don't understand. And when you're on the brink of the unknown, it is very normal to pause there because you don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, fear is a teacher who is not afraid to be painted black.
Yeah. It's like the shadow part of all of us.
And there is a purpose to why it's there, right? It's reminding you either I need to get more information, like what you were relating about what she said. I need to have more information, then I'll feel a little more secure. Or I am bullshitting this and I'm not standing in my truth. Therefore, I'm feeling very insecure.
Yeah.
Or I am trying to prove some agenda and I'm not really listening into myself. Therefore, I feel insecure. I'm trying to mimic somebody else who is my hero and therefore I'm not occupying my own truth. It can be a variety of things similar to this. But the fear is actually telling you, hey, listen, you're not exactly standing quite there, right? That's the majority of the fears that we face, is what I think. Now, even when you're standing in the truth, there can be things like that feel like fear, like trepidation, anxiety about what's going to be when it starts. But that's like being already, you've signed up into the army and you know the battle is coming, but you're just dealing with your nerves till the point that you hear that bugle call that's calling
Yeah.
you to go into battle.
Yeah.
That's a different sort of fear. So it is wise to be wary or have awareness or deepen your awareness about any deeper life experience. But the other fears, if the fears are coming up, it actually means that there's something that's very much unresolved. And I feel like the degree of the fear will tell you how much, because you can have a fear and then you'll be like, yeah, but I've already signed up for this. I know it's coming. And then that's where the divine, or whatever we call divine, just hold my hand. I know we got, I don't know, I don't even know if I got this, but I'm treading that path.
That
But if
clarity.
I have a lot of unresolved fears where I don't have data, I'm with a care provider that I don't trust, I don't feel safe, nobody's listening to me, I have no idea what's happening, I can just get these feelings, and I have not put in the work to sort out any of these things, then that fear is a very different thing. It's calling you to be, come on, be genuine, like get information about this. Feel more concrete in yourself as you're doing this, right? Nobody goes hiking in the Himalayas barefoot and wearing one linen dress, you know?
Yeah. Or high heels in the snow.
So
Yeah.
that's also that spectrum of fear is also very much there. So it is wise to be, it is always smart to acknowledge your fears, and then it is necessary to create your own pathways about how am I going to look at that fear and learn, really listen to it. Because fear is not a component that is a wasteful, it's not really there to just make you stuck in a loop. We go in a loop because we are not doing the work of looking at the fear and say, okay, now what do I need to do now?
Yeah.
The fear is always there for a purpose.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes we also distance ourselves from our fears. Like we have our fears, we see them. Probably we don't realize where they're coming from. And we distance our identity from it while trying to still solve it. But then, like you were talking about the loop is like we're stuck in the loop because we're so distanced and we don't want to accept it as a part of who we are. And on the healthy fear, the other thing that came to my mind was once I was at my Kale's place, my midwifery teacher, and it was raining. It was dark. It was 6:30 p.m. I could hear the jackals in and around me, and something within me, like really, it was that sort of a fear which you have when you're about to watch a horror movie. So I had that shudder go through my body. I was like, I don't want to hear a jackal, or I don't want to see a jackal. There was that clear sort of voice that said, I don't want to see a jackal. And I had to go to KL and I had to like meet her for like a 5-10 minutes. But of course, when we talk about birth, I would usually hang around for an hour or so, and it was dark and I was nervous, but I still went. I ran up to her. I said, I'm gonna be there only for 10 minutes. I just don't feel right in my body. I feel like I need to go back. And I went down the stairs. The first thing I see, a jackal 100 meters away, like right in front of me. Beautiful. It was a beautiful looking jackal, rain drenched, beautiful, looking me in the eye. For a second, we were both like looking at each other, kind of, I don't know. We were like trying to figure out, who are you? I'm like, who are you? And the second sense was run back up.
Mhm.
And while I shouted, then I shouted once my senses came back. Okay, I'm really seeing a jackal. And I shouted, and Kale came out. She said, do you want me? What happened? Did you fall? By then, I had not fallen. The first step I took in a hurry, I fell. The moment I fell, jackal ran away, ran away. And I went back and I told my mother, and she laughed and she said, there's a reason we call them gidar, because they're not strong enough to fight you. um you were really scared of it. That was the reason that you couldn't like. But in a way, if I see, like while you were saying, it is a healthy fear to have that, to register that, okay, I didn't want to see it, but probably I was more powerful than it. It still came up, and whatever it had to teach me, it taught me that probably I'm stronger than this, and I could use my senses a little more intelligently while I'm in front of a wild animal. um yeah. And also sometimes when you're so scared of something, it comes up for the very reason that I need to overcome my fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time I encounter a pregnant mom who says, I will not have a C-section, I make a mental note.
That's so deep. That's profound. Yeah. And what do you have to say about distancing, trying to distance ourselves from our fears?
I think we are taught, this is a very socio-cultural thing, I think. And it's also the most tempting thing for the ego. If I pretend that it's not there, maybe it'll go away. Or if I brush it under the carpet, maybe it will be fine and I will deal with it. Or if I run away and escape to another place, then I won't have to deal with it. I totally understand why, as a human being, we have the urge to distance ourselves or to run away. But when something is arising because you need to learn something, there's always a short window of time where the running away or the sweeping under the carpet and all will work. It is not going to work in the long term.
Yeah.
Many times it doesn't even work in the short term, especially when we're talking about pregnancy, and like it might work in the long term in the areas of job and career and things like that. But when we're talking about a pregnancy journey and a labor and a birth, if a fear's coming up, that's actually the best time to figure it out and deal with things. Again, you will not deal with it perfectly and I've got it all under control. It's not about that. It's not about the perfection and the completion of how you meet your fears. It's actually about, I think it's okay to open this door and stand and look at it. Sometimes even that much is enough, because even that much changes the dynamics. It's all about the dynamics, about me and the other, right? So the fear is then the other. And changing the dynamics itself changes how I feel in the ownership in that space. It changes how conversations can be had. It changes the potential for how other people can bring information to me. It changes so many things.
Right.
It's not about achieving and having no fear and then conquering and, oh, I've got to the top of the Himalayas. Even that small act of admitting, acknowledging that you have the fear, it shifts the dynamic so much. Because as long as I'm running away from it, I am actually making my fear helpless, in the sense that
Ah,
all that the fear can do then is to chase after me. And when something's chasing after me, it feels like this jackal, like this
right.
hyena, like this demon that's chasing after me. But it's chasing after me only because I'm running. But if I can stand there and look at it, it will also stand and look at me and saying, "Don't you want to go there? Don't you see I'm here to help you figure that out, that part out." So when I can stop running, then I can actually acknowledge that I have this fear. That acknowledgement itself changes the dynamic of the fear. Then I can actually go to that place where what I'm afraid of. Oh, I have this fear because I've always heard my mother saying, "Oh, birth is terribly painful," or whatever it is. Whatever is the source, whatever is the next step of it, I can go there. Only if I go there can I deal with it. If I'm distancing myself, I'm never going to go to the origin point or even one step closer to the origin point.
Yeah.
We don't have to be spiritual victors to do any of
Yeah.
this work. We just have to become more real with ourselves. So, this running away is the most tempting thing to do, right? If something is hard, I mean, there's a part of me that always like, I don't want to do that. So I totally get it. But especially in pregnancy and labor and birth, oh, is that what you don't want to do? Then that's what's coming. I've
Right.
always found that to be true. Because this is a sacred transition. There's a reason to why it is more profound and more intense in pregnancy and labor. This is a sacred transition when you're carrying the life of somebody else and you have said yes to having this collaborative project where you will deal with the shit that comes up and then you will enable this person, and then that person is saying, oh, I will facilitate the bringing up of your shit, and then I will also do the labor, and then I will, it's a collaboration between the baby and the mother, right? And it carries the seeds of so much deep transformation. that the fear is going to be relentless. The fear is there to tell you, no, 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 come on, girl, you got to come here, right? I want you to, I'm going to stand here, even if you hate me and if you kick me and if you try to voodoo me out of your system, also, I'm going to stand here, okay? So the fear has a purpose. That's why it's calling.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it wasn't important, it would have been easier to get rid of it.
Right. Can this also be a signal to something that needs like
Attention.
tension? Yeah.
It's always like trying to pull your attention to that which you're trying to run away from.
Yeah. And probably a signal for a redirection or moving forward into something you were not hoping would be there. But probably all of your Almighty is trying to tell you that now is the time, probably look elsewhere. You've contained yourself into one direction. Could it that be as well? Sometimes like it can be intuition than fear sometimes, which looks like fear, but yeah, that's also tough to kind of.
It is tough to decipher fear because it's easy to put that word, like the experience with the jackal. It's a lot of being unnerved and thrown off balance, and then the fear comes rushing in, right? But because we usually are not occupying ourselves with a lot of awareness, it's just we slap on that word fear. Sometimes a lot of genuine primal warning. But no matter how it is, fear is always calling you to pay attention.
Yeah.
So it is in a way it is like the veil that takes off that place where between, oh, okay, this is real, I really need to pay attention to it, and by the way, this is the bullshit that I was carrying. It actually, you can even show you the difference between the two.
Right. Yeah. No, beautiful. And then how do you see in the birth world things have shifted? So from the time you started, if I think about it, I just joined Birthwork like 3.5 years ago, closer to like 4. And when you must have started, assumably, um, it must have been very fresh, like a fresh knowledge for people. Birth workers still trying to figure out how to go about things. Even as birth workers, we have some fear we carry within ourselves, like we as people. And then for the inner work for the parents, as well as how important does it become for us to know where do we bring in our fear or our lack of it, like the glorifying of like our egos,
Yeah, yeah.
and then how do we function with the parents? Have you seen any shift happening, or like there were always pockets of things here and there, like there were people who were always doing the inner work, like how collectively, like if I generalize, like
I love that question because I think that's the most complex question that has come till now. Okay. So many layers in it. When in 2008, so my daughter, I had this totally amazing, um, rousing, um, mind blowing, almost psychedelic birth experience with my daughter, which I completely did not anticipate. It freaked me out when I had it because I was not expecting it to be like that. But during those years and the years that followed, I was not even aware of the word birth work or birth worker. I first encountered the word midwife was already, I was aware of that word. I was slowly aware of the word doula. But this umbrella term birth worker, I think I first encountered it maybe in 2016, 17, definitely after I joined the team at the birth center in Cochin at Birth Village. And even then, I don't think right in the beginning, I mean, it was one of those new words that came that suddenly like, oh yeah, that's the word for us, that it was like that for me at least. And so in the early till about 2016, my birth work also was very sporadic. It was only a response to others. There was a colleague of mine, when she was pregnant, she wanted me in the labor. So it was very, what do you call it? Very organic, very non-labeled. It was just me helping somebody out or having a conversation, explaining something. Then many months later, I would get a message saying that, thank you so much. I had a birth like this and I managed this. And you remember what we talked about. And it was just very, very organic and very loose. It wasn't very tight under a certain label or
Structure.
expectation. Yeah.
Yeah.
From them or from me. It wasn't a career or it wasn't a job. There was no money charged. It was just an exchange of what I knew and an exchange of what where they were at, and it was just a very organic back and forth. So this whole point about how a birth worker then was, it's like a thing. I mean, I didn't even know any other birth workers. I didn't realize that people who work in birth, like even a doctor is a birth worker, right? I didn't even have the
Yeah.
comprehension of all of that stuff. And to be very honest, there were no holistic birth workers. 2009, I didn't know anybody. 2010, I didn't know anybody. Around 2010, 11, some of my friends sent me this newspaper article, or they called me and said, did you hear about this water birth that happened in Cochin? I was living in Trivandrum at the time. And there was a water birth where Priyanka was the doula at the birth, and that mom, she ended up working so hard for in finding a doctor, and the mom also, she was so dedicated, and they as a team, they found a hospital, and there was a mom who had a water birth in Ernakulam, and that's the first time I heard about her. I heard this name Priyanka Idikula. So in my zone of existence, I know, okay, there is a person somewhere in Ernakulam. There also, because there's no Instagram and Facebook is not so organized and all, there's not really a way to be in touch. And also, I'm not a birth worker. I'm just a mom who now has a 1 year old and now a 2 year old, and I'm unschooling her, and I'm busy with home and my child, and that's the reality of my existence at that time. So there was no urge to, okay, I need to go find the person and we need to get together. And it wasn't a time like that. So the whole birth worker thing, like what you asked, for me, that whole thing started narrowing down, or a focus started coming to it only after I joined the team at Birth Village, and I began having experiences and witnessing births and understanding things and layers. And when you do the birth classes, when I was doing the birth classes there's a regularity of encountering pregnancy and multitude of perspectives and fears and couples, and that's when things started getting a little more focused for me. And during those years, the early years of Birth Village was a completely different modality or methodology, right? They were like a home birth center. And, I mean, it was very much what we understand about the word midwifery was very much the core of the work there. And that's because the senior midwife was Donna Mitchell. And Priyanka was doing her thing and she was learning, and then she got qualified and she was training under Donna. And the early years were very different. And now, of course, Birth Village is in another methodology, which is again so necessary, and it is something. The whole point of birth work is to be able to meet the woman where she is. And I think Birth Village and the other birth centers that we have in India are doing a great job of meeting the majority of the women who want an alternate or a better birth solution. But in the first years when I was on the team and when Donna was there and all, what Birth Village is now is not exactly what was. Today's Birth Village is what has evolved from that time. So that time when I got to have those years in the team during that phase of that birth center, it was very interesting and very, it played a big role in the evolution of what I understood as birth work and what is necessary. And coming to that point that you said, right, our own inner spaces and how we hold space within ourselves, and the very need. I mean, as a birth worker, I need to really admit that it is important, that my inner work is a very crucial part of where I stand in a birth. To even admit that or to understand or perceive that, it was my more concrete experiences as a birth worker with a birth team, with midwifery and all, that started bringing up those points to me. This part of me was not awakened during the earlier years, because there I was a mother who had a home birth, who people knew I had a home birth. Whenever they needed or whoever needed would reach out. But I'm not like a birth worker.
Yeah.
Although when I look back, it is correct that my birth work started over there.
Yeah.
But the frequency and my identity and my turning into that pathway, it started closer to 2015-16 when I joined the team over there. And at this point of time, I feel like a birth worker, maybe it's even possible that, I think, to be very honest, I would say that a good birth worker is somebody who can be committed to their own inner work just a little bit more than they're committed to birth work.
Oh. Yeah. And why do you say that?
Because my ability to stand in authenticity as a birth worker and hold this flavor of what I'm absolutely convinced about, where if I need to have the capacity to meet every woman or as many women as come to me, if I need to have the capacity to meet that individual in their own unique way, I better deepen my roots. Without me deepening my roots, I will not be able to cultivate that capacity to meet many different sorts of mothers where they are at. If I don't have the capacity to meet you where you are at, inevitably I will go to my next capacity point, to my closest capacity point, and that will be who I am, because that's the next place where I'll feel safe to stand.
Yeah.
It's just a very human thing. It's not about a wrong or a right. But if I need to say that this is who I am, but I have the capacity to be like this moss that can be on top of things, and I understand your roots also, and your roots also, and your roots also, then I have to have that mycelium has to have a deeper interaction with the ground that it's growing on. I actually have to have energetically a lot of grounding. I need to be somebody who has the capacity to discern and to be able to rely on my own deeper roots. I need to be able to know how to draw from deeper living waters, because that is what will actually help this mother.
Right.
If I am selling her a ticket to my show, I'm not being of service to her. So if I have to be non judgmental but clear, non agendaed but completely of service, without an agenda of my own, yet I know where my line is, which is not an agenda. If I need to know all of this stuff and reside there, I've been able to do that only because of inner work. Because I need to have a conviction of where my line is and a clarity of where my line is without being in judgment of anybody else's line, without having an agenda to sell, except that my agenda is that I'm a birth worker and my job is to meet the woman where she's at. My job is to help her to get more clarity about her journey, not to say this is the way, come down this path, because I am not looking to be a proselytizer or a missionary of anything. My job is to remind the woman that she knows, or if she needs some more time and we can explore it together, and she will arrive at what she knows is good for her. And if she doesn't know what's good for her, I can arrange, okay, is this, is it this, is it this, is it this? Then take time and
Yeah.
okay, then see and then explore. My job is not to hijack her from her driving seat. If I have to have the capacity to not be tempted to hijack, because I know this will be good for you, It's like good parenting in some ways, for some ages.
Yeah.
But if I have to resist that temptation and also genuinely know that no, this is not my car, it's not for me to drive this. To keep myself there is actually, especially in the earlier parts of my birth worker journey, it's actually me dealing with my own ego and coming back to reconciliation with truth a lot of times. And I don't think I would have been able to do that if the inner work wasn't there. Because we are standing at a very interesting time. I don't know. Yeah, I guess, yeah, historically, energetically, also in the context of how the genders are rewriting their dynamics with each other. And it is very easy for a woman to exert influence over another woman, right? We see men, we kind of criticize men for exerting influence through domination and manipulation and control. Women exercise another kind of influence, which I see, around me in the birth work field. And that's a much more layered and a fascinating place. Because every pregnant woman knows, they start to sense what their body is capable of, but without being authentic. I know my body is capable. The blueprint of my body is designed. If I have a healthy pregnancy, by and large, it's going to be a healthy birth. By and large, I'm already in the low risk category. There are so many scientific ways to categorize, to understand, to know where to hold the line, right? That's not rocket science. It's been done for 3-4 decades now. But to meet that individual mom and work with her fears and help her to see, oh, that's your line. Oh, okay, now 2 months later, your line has changed. Oh, great, okay, now that's your line. It is it's very possible for us to even unknowingly exert our influence over another woman.
Yeah.
And I think that is the fascinating part of inner work for birth workers, for me, because it's done with good intentions.
Yeah, right.
Every woman who is a birth worker that I have met and that I have known so far, I have no doubt about their intentions. So it's not a case where we're talking about somebody bad and somebody with bad intentions. But in birth, there are more layers, right? And that is where our inner work is a place to start, because there are lines that if we hold the lines, it's going to be good for all of us. Because there's a mom, so suppose there's a mom who is almost ready to start her expansive journey in pregnancy. And suppose she's a big fan of a birth worker or a birth worker's ideology, or she's a fan of a religion or a philosophy also. Can be any of those things. Now, the more that she is coerced into going down this pathway, the less she's going to be treading that journey that was designed for her. So we are also like taking her away from a potential pathway that she was, if she was at a crossroads, and if that was also a path that was open to her, about, okay, let me figure it out, let me have more agency, let me take decisions. Okay, can you support me with just, looking at my options, and okay, then I'll take 2 days and I'll figure it out. If she was already there, then we can interfere in somebody's journey. That's a human thing. Now, that being said, it is ultimately every individual's responsibility about who and what path they walk down. But it has to be acknowledged that we exert influence over each other.
Right. Yeah. That brings me to, so sometimes we are very I don't know if it's the right word, oblivious. We don't realize that we are exerting a lot of influence, because that's just the kind of, that's how we are, and nobody holds a mirror to us sometimes, and life just goes on. And so, how do then people, especially the birth workers, how do they figure out, how do they start their inner work? Do you think there's a time and space that they'll be guided themselves, or probably they could actively do something about noticing how they are influencing, or whether they are in that position of power? Because we all are in that position of power when we're working with moms, and we can use it to for ourselves at the same time. Like, so many things are coming to my mind while you said, like, there are two safe spots that a birth worker can stand on. The one is where you are constantly, like, you feel secure in yourself and you're only looking at what the other person is and probably needs from you. That's what you're evaluating. Or the second is probably you're also in the second spot where you are constantly thinking, okay, I think that that's right. So the probably the influence goes around the second part from the first part. What I'm trying to ask in all this is, how does someone who doesn't really realize is trying, like, is starting the journey of birth work or is new, work on themselves in all of this?
It's hard because if you don't realize, you don't realize.
Yeah.
I think if you don't realize, you haven't, you're like a birth technician. You're not really a birth worker, if that's the apt word. Again, it's from good intentions. But if you don't realize that there are layers, you're not even on that journey yet, is what I would, that's what I feel now.
Yeah.
The next thing is that a good birth worker has to have the capacity to always remember that this is sacred. It's not about activism, because that is something I feel like of late that I feel is coming up. And I understand why it's coming up, right? Because it's been suppressed for so long, the women and their bodies. It's been the medical system that's been. And these reactions are a natural outcome of having years of being repressed and controlled and dominated over. And I understand why it's happening. But I also feel like for the birth worker, it is important for us to not always glorify activism. Because I don't think that our job is to save a woman. I think our job is more, or this is my philosophy at least, I think the work is actually to remind a woman that she doesn't need saving and that she has power.
Yeah. And it gets complex sometimes when women themselves are still trying to figure themselves out,
Yeah.
and then they try and offload that back onto the birth worker,
Yes.
because they don't, because it's so overwhelming, that power, that need to make decisions, that need to work with the fears, and then have to really, you have to decide at some point what you want. It's easier to have someone else influence us at that point. So that dynamic, how do you see?
So there also I find a lot of value if the birth worker does inner work, because we have to develop the capacity to stand with her without giving her ready-made answers.
Yeah, right.
Right? I can, if we need to sit here for 2 days, we can sit here for 2 days.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like, I'm probably the only person who can say it's okay to not have an answer. But let's go over like what all came up today. This came up, this came up, this came up. And if you need to send me 100 voice notes between now and tomorrow, go ahead and send me that. But the work is going on. Now, how will I, as a birth worker, be able to stand like that with her if I don't develop my capacity to resist my own ego to tell her, you know what, this is what you should do?
Yeah, or even subtly influence, even if we're not giving answers, you know, pushing somebody in that direction in a very subtle way, but then saying, okay, you get to decide.
But this point that we're talking about is only applicable to a very small percentage of women, okay?
Right.
Because the
Yeah.
majority of women are not even at a place where they are seeking an alternative, and the majority of the women who are seeking alternatives are already wanting a hospital like alternative.
True that.
And it is only a small minority from that group about whom I'm talking right now. But they are there, they're always there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in order to be very fair, there's going to be birth workers that have to correspond with each category also. So, just to be very clear, this conversation that I'm sharing with you is, what is it? We're talking about a very small percentage. But I still think that it's important to talk about the ideal, because a birth worker who's right now in her 30s, when she's in her 40s, she's probably going to figure this out, or it's going to awaken within her.
Yeah. Right.
And so it is important to accept where everybody's at without sacrificing our contemplation or our perception of what is ideal. We still need to talk about
Yeah.
the gold standard, even when we
Certainly.
know that we are all falling much shorter than the gold standard, because we all do aspire to keep growing to get closer and closer to this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the aspect of vulnerability in a birth worker. You've already spoken about sincerity, so being honest to ourselves and to our parents. The aspect of vulnerability, how important it is.
It depends on what vulnerability. I would say spiritual vulnerability in your inner work is very important. But vulnerability when you are looking at yourself in the mirror after you come back from a birth and really acknowledge, there's a lot of, like, 50% of things that you actually understand. I don't know about, maybe I shouldn't generalize. I would say at every birth that I've been at, 50% of the things that I learned and that I saw and that I understood, there is no place for me to talk about it. Because I shouldn't go and tell this mother this, because she's just beginning her postpartum journey. I don't want to derail her, because it's all fine at the end of it. But you get to glimpse so many things in the valleys and the peaks, and the valleys and the peaks, and the valleys and the peaks, right? And I'm not flooded with birth hormones, only the mother is. So I'm not forgetting any of the things that I perceived and that I learned. So then the whole question is like, why did, and then I see it? It's actually for me to take back to grow.
Yeah.
It's for the database of the birth worker. So the vulnerability of the inner work has to be 100%. And then the vulnerability about how I am with the mother, that I don't think we can have a set thing about it, because it will depend on the personality of the birth worker, it'll depend on the personality of the mother, it'll depend on what the birth worker then decides, I need to have boundaries like this because this mother is this kind of a person. And so that's very individualized,
Right.
that part of the vulnerability. But the inner vulnerability with self, just like with all inner work, it doesn't matter if you're a birth worker or if you're a king who is on a spiritual journey, the vulnerability to your own journey of yourself is, I think it's supposed to be the same.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about sometimes when we head out or we have a relationship with a parent and we've been a certain kind, or we all have certain ideas about things and we have our opinions, and probably something came up again and again and we had our opinion, and suddenly we realize something within us shifts. Like all of this is a mirror for us as well along the line. And sometimes when we hold something so strongly, usually the mirror shows us that probably not. And then the vulnerability to be open and honest about it without the fear of judgment. Probably I was asking about that, like how important it is to be able to do that without having to think that.
Do you mean with the mom or with other birth workers?
No, with the mum at the moment.
So again, I have found in my experience that it also depends on the relationship of the frequency alignment between the mom and the birth worker.
Ah, all right, got it.
That's a very relationship based thing.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be vulnerable in a place where you don't feel safe. That's also there. No, you don't mean that. Yeah.
So that is also not required in that interaction. a lot of
Right.
times. Like very early in my birth work, I used to bring it all the time. Then I realized, hey, she doesn't want it. Just leave her alone,
Got it. Got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's profound for me. She's on a high, she's got a
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
And inevitably, if there's something still lingering, that mom will message you after 6 months or even after 1 year. And then it'll come up when it needs to come up.
Got it. Yeah, yeah. Probably in the journey of pregnancy itself, where supposedly a decision needs to be made, and we've had an opinion, and suddenly we realize that probably it wasn't that, and there's another way that you know. I don't know if I'm articulating it. Like we've been holding our stand onto something all through.
Now you're talking about the
No,
mom,
I'm talking
yeah?
about myself. Say I'm interacting.
About the birth
Yeah.
worker.
Say I'm speaking to a mom all through, and I've had my stand on something. And then comes a point where it's shaken within me to have the vulnerability to then shift and say, probably I was wrong. I see this now. How do you see it? That aspect, because sometimes even that is difficult when you've been so when you we are all very passionate in birth work. We hold things very dear to us, and that thread, that tie is very strong sometimes. And of course, like you were saying, all through the years of birth work, it might mellow down, it might become much more fluid than in the beginning. So that sort of vulnerability is what I was thinking about.
So the ability to be authentic, even if it means that you portray, even if it means that you might be misunderstood as you don't know your job.
Right, right, right. Yeah, that's what I meant. That sort of a vulnerability, how important this is. And then when you like brought up the aspect of the dynamic between the parent and the birth worker, and I instantly felt that there are times when you don't feel safe with someone as well, because there seems to be a lot of judgment, which is not healthy for the relationship as well, like for the work that we're going to put in. Now that would be another discussion altogether for us birth workers, for us to choose who to work with and who not to work with, without really saying that people are bad. It's just the misalignment sometimes, and it comes up in our bodies, in our interactions. We just feel it. Same for parents, same for us, and they can say no to us and we can say no to them. So that's another story. But
And yet, it is possible for me to cultivate an ability to meet her where she is at.
yeah,
Because where I am at is not the important place. Where she is at is the important place.
yeah, yeah,
So, my ability to pivot to make always her center stage without being foolish or foolhardy, or so I need to always have my own lines without compromising on my lines of safety, validity, good practice, my own experience, my clarity, my conviction. Without changing any of that, how do I meet her? And there might be people with whom, after a couple of encounters, you might say that I'm really not feeling, and it's not you, it's me.
yeah, right,
Right? That's resonance of philosophy is just not happening. But I do have the number of somebody else who I think might be a little more aligned with you.
yeah,
Would you like to give them a call and then explore that? Of course, we can do
yeah,
that.
yeah. And you spoke about safety, so that was a question that I wanted to ask. You had an unassisted birth years back. I'm sure safety must have come up in conversations, maybe after the birth. That must have been the first point of conversation with mums who reached out to you. And now, when we talk about birth, so the majority, like you were saying, would still choose either a birth center or a hospital for birth for the aspect of safety. Then there is the aspect of safety at a home birth as well. How do you see birth in all these scenarios, say, or safety in general when it comes to birth?
So I think the fundamental thing to start from is to accept that birth, like life, There is no guarantee of safety. That is irrelevant of whether you're in a hospital or on the road or in a train, in your home, right? This is why there is not a single country in the world that has eradicated infant
Yeah.
mortality. Right, there's a reason for that. Having accepted that, we have to go to what is the next circle of safety that we are talking about, right? We are talking about baby alive and mother alive. Now, we have such clear demarcations for this to facilitate this, that the question of safety, like for example, a high risk woman should never be encouraged to have a home birth. We all know that. Simply because the that story that's unfolding there is already telling us that it needs more inputs, and those inputs are not there in the house. Whereas a low risk woman is far safer having a home birth because the inputs that she requires are inputs that are available in the house, which is about patience and waiting. Those are the higher inputs. Now, depending on where she feels safe,
Yeah.
safety is a very mental thing, right? We only talk about the technical safety when we think that having a lot more machines makes us safer. The more technology you have, it is safer. That is actually true for a high risk birth. It's not always inherently true for a low risk birth. But in a low risk birth, how do you bring more safety? Okay, if the mother feels that she feels safer if she has a clinical person, then a midwife is the best fit over there. If a mother feels and she knows and she does her own work to make herself safe, and her own inner work to make herself safe, and she knows her body and she understands, it's then in that category this whole discussion falls into not just safety but also rights. That's a very messy and delicate line to hold, because if we really go deeper into it, we're going to open up a rabbit hole about why does somebody care if somebody's child dies. To be very blunt about it, we'll have to talk about the fact that a child is a possession of the state.
Yeah.
Then we'll have to talk about the fact that we are all technically possessions. We are human resource, that because that's the place from which the problem is arising.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But without getting into that, talking about safety itself, I would just like to highlight certain things that are not often talked about when we talk about safety. A mother who has conceived and grown her child for 10 months is the last person who will knowingly do anything to endanger her baby. Not even the father can love this baby as much as that mom, especially in that moment while they're still in the same body together. So I don't think that any mother chooses anything with the idea of unsafety. Her choices, in any of the choices that she makes, safety is already, she's already ticked that box off in her head, which is why she's ticking off and now she's talking to you about another box that she wants to tick off. Right? So that is something that I'm 100% convinced of. Ensuring safety is something that not even a hospital can guarantee, which is something that we still have to put on the table when we're talking about a home birth or a birth center birth or whatever. Our agenda is always to have a healthy baby and a mother. Now, what is the safest environment for a low risk mother to have a positive birth experience and have the baby and her alive? We don't even need to speculate about this anymore, because there's been decades of published studies and evidence that shows that for a low risk and a healthy mom, no interventions, least interventions, midwifery, this is the combination that works. It is simply because this is a fact that all the countries around the world are again going back to adopting midwifery practice, because it's been proven beyond a doubt. So again, the options that we offer a mom, we already have the capacity. Even governments have the capacity to look at data and say, okay, this is the best combination to offer a low risk mother. So if we have, from this angle, we know how to do it. safer and better. Again, there is no ultimate safety. We're always going for safer and better, proven practices for safer and better. Mother wants least, again, all the moms who are desiring to do a home birth, the overwhelming majority that I have seen, they want a home birth because they want less interventions. Not the majority, the overwhelming majority are not opting for home birth because they don't want people present.
Yeah.
That is still a very tiny number of mums who want, I don't want anybody. That's a different category who are being called into some other spiritual journey, or however we want it. There are many words that we can use for it. The majority of women who are seeking a home birth are not doing it because they want to be alone. It's actually because they want it hands off. They want less intervention. They're not doing it because they want to be unsafe. It's because they're tired of being manhandled and spoken down to. And we are already at a time where we can offer these women safety, but for very systemic reasons, the majority of establishments have been unable to formulate a way to offer a space for them to birth. And in the absence of that space is where they are opting for a home birth, which for women who are not emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically prepared, I would say a home birth is not an ideal choice. And therefore, I think that the system, by its unwillingness to budge and evolve, is creating unsafety by not evolving to provide those spaces for this category of women. And again, women are not cows. It's so sad to say this because cows also, I'm pretty sure each one is so unique, right? We have so many layers, so many different categories. And it's not like hundreds. It's less than, broadly speaking, it's around 5 categories. Now, with all of the resources and understanding and capacities that we have in this modern age, it is very possible for us to create safety spaces and safe spaces for 5 categories of birthing experiences. The larger question is, why aren't people doing that? So safety is it's a very big term. There are so many angles to this. But not a single mother would choose to not have a C-section if she knows that she's with a care provider. She's in a situation where she knows that this is what's best for my baby. I will dare anybody to show me one mother who says, I don't care. I will still not do the C-section. Right? So it's not the mother who is insane, right?
Yeah.
It's just that the systems around her are not there to support her in the right ways. And therefore, she is forced to make a decision that sometimes, again, it's still the aberration. Unsafety is still the aberration. That sometimes it ends up so happening that there is an unsafe outcome or a less than positive
Yeah.
outcome.
Yeah. I'm thinking, so we talk about safety in the home birth settings, in the midwifery led institutions. We talk about it. There is a discussion. Somehow in the hospital systems, and this is not to really pull anything down, it's just to state facts. I often wonder, why is it the aspect of safety is presumed in the hospitals and not actively discussed, the brunt of which is also faced by the well-meaning doctors, the hospitals, people who join the medical system for all the good reasons.
It's a moot point because propaganda and advertising and a God complex, and because so much technology, and in practice, to be very honest, it's because preemptive care that can cause a lot of damage to the mother's emotional, psychological well-being, right? Preemptive action will ensure that there's an alive baby and mother, even when the preemptive action was not required.
Yeah, it was more detrimental to the health of both the mother or the baby in the long run.
Yes, but when you have a population of even care providers who are able to only see the generalized view and cannot this is coming back to the point of the layers that birth holds, emotionally, psychologically, physically, spiritually, right? This particular experience holds all of these layers. And if you are with a care provider who can only see the physical part of it, then there is nothing to argue there.
Yeah. I remember you also said when you spoke about your own birth journey and your pregnancy journey that when the pediatrician did not understand you, you knew that it's a waste of time. And it was so wise. I mean, it was so beautiful to hear that because often sometimes in birth work, we do tend to make it about them or us. For example, all medical midwives are bad. It's just us or the birth keeper, the completely hands off traditional midwives who are good. Now, that might sound exciting, thrilling, or might give us a direction in the initial days, might actually help us have a good outcome for a majority of the case. But, like you were talking about layers, each individual birth keeper would be a human being. Every midwife would be a human being. I've seen, in fact, the older midwives were the ones who were registered, got themselves deregistered. Many were traditional, learned the clinical skills along the way because they felt they were necessary to ensure the safety of the mother and the baby. Most older midwives would often say, just did what felt right to me. No categories there. But at the same time, today in the birth world, there are categories. And do you think also sometimes we don't have a choice? We feel inclined to go to the hospital, but at the same time, we don't trust the hospital. So that is also a very complex scenario to be in, to constantly fight. Again, I don't know what I'm trying to ask, but I'm I'm probably trying to lay down here that do you think that that fight really is helpful in the long run, or we could talk about it in a more balanced, in a more nuanced way?
As a birth worker, I will be able to have the capacity to even genuinely stop fighting only if I do my inner work.
Comes back to that. Yeah.
Because us and them, in between that, there is the pregnant mom. It's always the pregnant mom's clarity that gives the birth worker the direction of how to work with her. There is absolutely nothing good that can come out of us versus them, because there is a value to this, whatever us brings, and there is a value to whatever they bring. Learning how to collaborate, because I will never be able to bring what a skilled surgeon can bring to a mother who needs an emergency C section, right? It's actually about how do we figure out how to be a wholesome unit together where there is no agenda but the mother and the baby, and not the mother and the baby alive. Not just that, because that's so basic. But did we put them in the center of things? Now, if a team can figure out how to do that, it means we are at a place and time where even the doctor will have to have inner work. The midwife will have to have inner work. Because birth is not a disease, no, you can't go and fix it. It's not about anything that needs to be fixed. In an emergency, there are things to be done, rightful things to be done, but they don't have to be done to a body. They are services offered for the well being of the baby and the mother. It's all in the dynamic about how do we treat this mother and baby. When there is no emergency, how do we treat them and how do I meet them? When there is an emergency, how do I treat them and how do I meet them? That human element, that this is a very precious and sacred activity that's going on, that's passing through my hands, is something for all people involved with birth to be aware of. I think if we can reorient our own vision to it, now in order to reorient our vision, it is not just that we need to become humble. To a person of the medical fraternity who is incapable and unwilling to see this human part of it, I have to be a birth worker who says that I'm very sorry, I will never collaborate with you. There's a line that I will need to hold with that person. But but I can never say that all doctors are so and so and so. When I do happen to meet a doctor who's collaborative and who's willing to sit across and have a conversation, I will welcome it with both hands. And we have to have that conversation because we don't know what's going to come out of that. And something beautiful might come out of that collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, it comes down to it's not the birth worker industry meeting the medical gynecological industry. It is a person who cares about birth and the mother and baby meeting another person who cares about birth and the mother and the baby.
Right. Yeah. I've felt that probably it's also the energy that we put out. So if we put out a lot of fight, a lot of hate, it does somewhere down the line grow on us and becomes the meat.
I think we all, when we're younger, we think that activism is the way. But I think activism incites more conflict. The reason we need activism is for information to spread, actually. But this is what I feel. But activism, after a certain age, we have to let go of the activism and develop skills about collaboration.
Yeah. That's the only way forward. Or should I say that? Yeah. Potentially. With all its
Yeah. Like for me, it's always a red flag when I meet a 60-year-old activist.
ah who's like loud and
I totally understand a 20-year-old activist and a 30-year-old activist.
yeah. Yeah. And I had a question, but it was pretty much on these lines about the we versus them.
We can't be enemies and keep the mother in the center.
She'll be bound to choose then, and yeah, that's going to be very detrimental.
And then if she chooses my enemy, then I will immediately think, oh, she's my enemy.
Yeah.
Or how stupid is she? Like I will form judgment towards her. And what if she wants to, again have my services in postpartum? Will I engage with her with so much purity and cleanliness of energy, or will I still have this in my mind?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask ourselves.
So, anytime there is a personal agenda, it won't work. You can't be a savior to a woman, you cannot be a martyr to your birth work, you cannot be an enemy to the medical industry. There actually is. I think maybe a lot of us find it confusing because we have not seen what that other place looks like.
Yeah.
What does it look like if I'm not fighting the system? And if I'm not angry with the person who turned their back on me, and if I, I think this is the time and age where we figure that out. What does it look like? And we are the people who figure out what it looks like.
Yeah. Probably a lot of inner security, like you were saying, with the inner work, when there comes to be inner security, that it's fine that this person does not understand me. It's okay to walk away without having to prove a point, without having to, yeah, make my presence felt, because it's not going to help. It is of no value there. Um, yeah.
Yeah, if somebody says, I don't want your services, especially as we get older, it's important for me to have the ability to see that it's not a rejection of me. Their choice of what they prefer is not necessarily a rejection of me, right? So that's definitely a call to inner work, right? Probably some inner child wounds and
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, what would you say, Reba, to all the moms out there who are planning their birth at the moment or are in their pregnancies and contemplating maybe how to choose a birth worker, maybe which way to go? What is it that they should look for within themselves or in general as a first step?
definitely get as much accurate information as possible from somebody who's a good teacher, not just the same old, right? If you need to contact several birth workers, sit and have conversations with several birth workers. Trust your instinct on that person works for me, right? The feeling should be right, especially when you're pregnant, right? That is like a superpower. So definitely trust your instincts on that. And it's the same thing for where's the place of birth, right? I love my birth clients who come and very honestly, they're like, "No, I really want to be in a hospital. I feel very safe in a hospital. I'm very clear I want to be in a hospital." You know what a relief it is? There's no games being played.
Clear on what they want.
Yeah, and it's not bad. It's not wrong. And equally, I have other clients who have come and said, I'm very clear. No, hospital, no, it's not. I just like this, in my mind ever since I was 17. There's so much clarity, that willingness to meet yourself where you are, accept the reality where you are now. And also to pregnant moms, I would say, pregnancy is a very long period of time. You will keep changing your mind. Give yourself space. Just because you decided something when you are 3 months pregnant, don't feel like you are tied to it and you're stuck. There's enough place and time to keep changing your mind. As you keep getting more information and new information, you will change your mind. You should change your mind. And, find those people who will help you to be devious if you want to be. But, there's a thing. But it's also important, I think, to find a birth worker who really resonates with you, who is not afraid to tell you the truth, and who has no ulterior motive. Right? A good birth worker is somebody who doesn't glorify home birth, who doesn't vilify a hospital birth, and everything in between goes where it
Yeah.
is. And in between, if you are willing to do this, then you'll slowly figure out how to meet the mother where she is. Pick somebody who you can, without any anxiety, you can actually say what's on your mind.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So this is very similar to, and I have a particular episode with one of the moms who was working with you, and she said at one point she had some question and she called you up, and you redirected her to, okay, what do you feel deep within you? And probably that is what she needed, and that to me felt, I really liked it, because it was not you, like all that you've said across, like in the last 2 hours that we spoke, that it's not you guiding or influencing. It's really bringing the mother back to herself. It's very similar to coaches, the way coaches are trained to again and again ask you enough questions so that you see for yourself where you want to be. So yeah, so that's sort of a place in a birth worker who is able to reflect back on your fears, but not really try and box them into, okay, this is right, maybe, okay, this is just your fear, or it's for you to figure out, not for me. And there is a lot of strength in it. I mean, it needs somebody who's really strong deep within, to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there has to be all sorts of birth workers also.
Yeah, you've said that before. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even that, oh my God, only if you're like this, then you're a worthy birth
Yeah.
worker. It's not even about
Yeah.
that. It's just a reminder that as we keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, there is also this.
Right.
And deepening our skills about where can we meet the mother and keep her on her journey. You remind her to come back to herself, because it's not happening inside my body. Right? Okay, the older I get, of course, my skills deepen. I can see what's happening in a lot of cases. But there also, it's not my job to say, hello, I see this, and therefore you should. That has no place. Me dictating something to her has no place in her journey. Whereas the power in me being able to ask her the question and say, let's think about it. And could it be like this? Is it from here? The beauty in the moment where she actually gets to that point where she's like, I figured it out. It's because of this, and they've done this, and this. There's so much jubilance in herself, right?
Yeah.
There's so much more payoff in witnessing the jubilance that she has in herself than if I had told her this a week ago.
Yeah.
Right? Then there's no journey. Then it's actually about her. It's about her all the time.
And also teaching her, I mean, in a way, it's teaching her her own method of figuring things out for herself. That's a life skill.
And also, to be very honest, the other side of that is when she is for whatever reasons, if I feel like, okay, she's not getting the information has to be solid. Because whatever you call the clinical, the physiological information or how the body works is already a framework of its own. Meeting the mother where she is doesn't mean that you indulge all of her whims and
Right.
fancies. A lot of people on the outside, they think that that's what it is, right? That's not what it's about. The line about what the body is doing and what the data that it's giving and the baby and the honesty about the fact that you have fear and all, that's not something that we're playing around with. Nobody's playing around with anything. There is no indulgence in wishful thinking and flights of fancy at all.
Yeah.
But there is, that line is being held at all times. And I have found that mothers, they relax more when they're with a birth worker who is actually very solid and say, listen, this is the reason. I don't think, remember in class we talked about this, and when this kind of thing shows up, and you came to me saying that you are feeling nervous from 2 days. If you feel okay, go get a scan. Once you get the data from that, then you can relax. So this is one way of looking at it. Otherwise, if you want to sit and meditate, you really want to tune in, let's facilitate that. But there are options given that actually will zone in on what is happening there. There is at no point of time ignoring what is actually unfolding there with the pregnancy. So meeting the woman where she is actually about making her get very real. It's a reality check on where she is. It's not an event management company that is indulging in her flights of fancy. That's not what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, beautiful. Thank you so much, Reba. I don't know what to say. It just flowed so beautifully. There were so many things we spoke about. I still feel there are so many angles we could really open up and
It's very hard to talk about this without people thinking that taking it personally, And I don't mean any of this personally. It's just a reality that we have to look at and figure out for ourselves. Because birth work is very new in our country.
it is.
And we are a country of people who still have very colonized mindsets. We are what we are. So emancipation and liberation itself has a lot of foolhardiness embedded with it. But that's not good for a pregnancy. We shouldn't be foolhardy. We should be wise and we should wise up and we should be smart, but also we should have autonomy and agency. We are trying to figure out this new formula about how can we have a mindset, how do we emancipate from a colonized mindset, and what does that even mean for us?
Right. Yeah. Often women close themselves in pregnancy because that feels very, very safe to even information because of probably the activism, the foolhardiness of,
Yeah.
every aspect which is really trying to bring a change in its initial stages.
And I find that is also escapism, even without intending
Yeah.
to, right? Showing a birth video without showing the poop that comes out, showing it without putting music on top of it, without, again, it's such a primal experience. It's very raw, it's very messy, right? And then our depiction of it, and again, the depiction of it can only be where that woman is comfortable showing.
Yeah.
But I think it is important to have conversation that it's not like it looks like even on the best video on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that's not what it's going to look like for you. I had a client who was very aghast that her own journey and the sounds that came out of her body were totally not what she was prepared for.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is through the audiovisual that we create anticipation and awareness, and
Yeah. Imagination.
yeah, and maybe it's we need to have more types of conversation, right? It's just like, I mean, thankfully we are at a point where we can talk about there's not just two positions where you can have
Yeah.
sex. And sex is more than just procreation, it's about sensuality and pleasure and all of that stuff. But then imagine how much more birth is then.
Yeah. Like an extension of that. I remember one mum said, it feels all very untidy to me, or, that way is not very clean, not very. So I really feel very awkward about this. It doesn't seem, yeah.
But when a mom says that, it's such a beautiful
It is so
opening.
beautiful.
Let's talk about messiness and what is the untidy parts and
Yes. Yeah. So happy to know that than for her to just live with it, and me
yeah,
me sharing the birth videos, etc. It's not helpful. It's not helping her at all. Maybe she's going to close herself more to birth than. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So happy for her to be able to share this.
yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, all those little nuances to birth, which are so individual to people. And like you were saying, we presume that the world is pretty much like us when we are young. Like, it's just, that's how it is. And when I was growing up, I thought everybody would be the this there used to be this Times newspaper which had this speaking tree, and I felt everybody kind of would be that
yeah,
sort of a person growing up. Now in my mid 30s, I'm like, there is a lot of place for a lot of different things that probably I don't even want to touch upon. Like, I want to stay far away from this, but it has its place, and probably in ample. And that was pretty much a world that I envisioned. It's not reality. It can be so complex.
mhm.
And yeah. And what do I say? I'm like, again, very, very grateful to you, Reba. And I'm so happy that we got to sit today finally. And it's been, I do not know how to articulate how this conversation has been. I think it's something that will be with me for a very, very long time. Like, there's so much for me to learn, think through. Probably in different situations, some things you've said might come up, and I'll be like, yeah, that's what Reba was saying. And yeah, I think that's the feeling I have through this. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you so much for this, Divya.
Yeah.
There is a field beyond fear, where the body is empowered to take on labor and birth. To land there, it is crucial to take birth education. To enroll into our unique labor and birth preparation course, reach out to us at www.birthagni.com or scroll through all available prenatal and postnatal preparation classes. Thank you for listening, all in the spirit of birth, womanhood, and freedom. Remember, you got the bar. This podcast is about physiological birth and does not offer or claim to provide medical knowledge or diagnosis.
Starting a podcast with poor recording tools in the market? It was painful until I found Zencastr. Its high quality audio and video recording, along with the option of a backup, makes it super sturdy and a savior at times. With an easy to use dashboard and super convenient tools for advertising campaigns such as reels and videos, Zencastr is my comfort choice. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code BIRTHAGNI, BIRTHAGNI, and you will get 30% off of your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. You may also explore their free hobbyist plan to begin with.